स्थिति से 2020 की उस स्थिति से 2021 तक एक पूर्ण परिवर्तन आया, जहां यात्रियों की संख्या इतनी बढ़ गई कि केवल भारत में नहीं लेकिन विश्व भर में प्लेन्स की शॉर्टेजेस हो गई। एयरपोर्ट्स की क्षमताओं पर चुनौती का प्रश्न खड़ा किया गया और उस वातावरण में जो पूरे विश्व को प्रभावित किया, जहां यात्रियों की संख्या बिटवीन द डिजायर ऑफ द कस्टमर टू ट्रैवल एंड द सर्विस प्रोवाइडर which is the airline to provide that service on behalf of the intermediary, and the airport performs that role of the intermediary between the value chain of the customer and the service provider. Even more so, because apart from one or two exceptions, generally the airport is a monopoly, because you have a single point of call of entry in a particular city, and therefore it is incumbent on the service provider, i.e. the airport, to be able to provide that facility. What we found on that day, and for me it was a straightforward operations exercise. There is an input in terms of the passengers who arrive curbside at an airport. There is an output in terms of how many passengers board planes. In the middle of that input and output is a process. That process has 5 to 6 touch points. The first touch point is when the passenger arrives curbside at an airport. The second touch point is the entry gate inside the airport. The third touch point is when the passenger goes for check-in into the airport. The fourth touch point is the baggage drop. The fifth touch point is the PSC, the security check process of a passenger. And the sixth and last checkpoint is your boarding gate. Now, it's a very simple algorithm of trying to put in place, in terms of the number of passengers coming in, the capacity at each one of these checkpoints, so that the latency and delay at each one of these checkpoints is the shortest possible. And that must flow through the system. On the other hand, it is also important to manage the bell curve position of an airport capability of ATMs, air traffic movements per hour, because that too, there are two determining factors in terms of the amount of throughput at an airport. One is the process of the 6 touch points in terms of the capacity you put in place. The second is the number of arrivals and departures you have per hour. One is an external push into the system. The other is the internal process. Abhi ye chodo, baith jao. The other is the internal process in terms of the capacity that you put in place. So what we did after this meeting of 3.5 hours at Delhi airport is we decided to take the 6 metros in phase 1 across our country and look at the capacity creation across these 6 airports. It is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's not a cookie-cutter approach, because each airport has its own issues. And in the second phase, in addition to the 6 metro city airports, we took 10 additional airports that experience congestion. And those very clearly were Bhubaneswar, Chandigarh, Goa, Patna, Jaipur, Guwahati, Lucknow, Ahmedabad, Trivandrum, and Kochi. So 16 airports in total were taken on board on the 12th of December, and we started working at what the causes for congestion were. We started working on a schematic as to what the parameters should be for each touch point. And post our initial exercise, we had a meeting with the Home Minister, and along with him, we decided that we must have international benchmarks that are put in place in terms of capacity at each one of these touch points. 3 or 4 very clear causes came out in terms of what the reasons were for this. The first was the issue of lack of sufficient airport infrastructure. Second, inadequate X-ray screening machines, or as we know in aviation parlance, XBIS machines and ATRS machines. Third, inordinate bunching of flights during peak hours, creating that peak hour congestion, which is beyond the capacity of the airport. Fourth, inadequate amount of manpower with regard to security as well as immigration. So what we did as a first step is to make sure that we facilitate every process along the step. So if you remember very clearly, in mid-late December itself, there is almost like a Naka before the Delhi airport. We placed video screens there in terms of the wait time at each departure gate. We made sure we had usherers at each departure gate to make sure that passengers moved from a heavily congested departure gate to one that was not. Video screens were put in place to monitor that. Radio walkie-talkies were given to usherers. We increased the number of departure gates. We also increased the number of passenger check-in gates. We also made sure that we increased the number of ATRS and XBIS machines. Some airports complained about the lack of space within their airports. And so we personally visited those airports where there were VIP lounges or retail and commercial spaces which needn't be there, because the priority of an airport is to serve the customer. We made sure we broke down VIP lounges. We removed retail spaces, and a case in point for you is Delhi Airport, where after the removal of the VIP lounge, 5 X-ray machines were placed in that particular area, which eased congestion tremendously. And therefore, through all of these processes and the use of DigiYatra, we brought in place DigiYatra at 5 airports initially, all metro airports apart from Chennai. We then increased it by another 8. Today, DigiYatra is working across 13 airports in India. Those 13 airports cater to almost about 85% of our domestic passenger traffic. We've had 35 million downloads of DigiYatra app. 91 lakh times the DigiYatra app has been used by passengers to either arrive at particular airports and board planes. In the next phase, which is in calendar year 2024, we are going to take up first 14 more airports that we are adding on to DigiYatra, and in the second phase, 11 more airports, so a total of 25 more airports in calendar year 2024. So from our current 13, that number will go up to 38 by the end of 2024. And against 85% of passengers who will be covered under DigiYatra in the 13 airports, now close to 96% of our passengers will be covered when we cover 38 airports through DigiYatra. In addition to this, the 4th runway has been commissioned in Delhi. The Eastern Cross Taxiway has been commissioned, which has also led to a cut in taxiing time from close to 21 minutes down to almost 7 minutes for aircrafts. The new T1 terminal building will be commissioned shortly in Delhi. In Bangalore, the new T2 terminal building for domestic and international operations has been commissioned in Bangalore. We moved domestic and international operations to the new T2 terminal. The expanded terminal building at Hyderabad is on its way to be inaugurated. In Mumbai, because there's a paucity of space, we function at roughly 50 million passengers per annum in Mumbai. The capacity has been reached, but we have restructured the pre-embarkation security check area. In Mumbai, we've taken permission from the Maharashtra government and created a lift facility to take passengers up and created a new PSC area. We've added 3 more security lanes. There's a new terminal building that will be commissioned in Lucknow in the next 3 to 4 months, which will increase capacity there. And similarly, new terminal buildings in Guwahati and Patna as well. The 2 big airports that are going to come online in this calendar year, next calendar year, in October and November will be Navi Mumbai and Jewar, which will also increase capacity tremendously. And finally, before we go into the presentation, our increase on CISF, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank personally and on behalf of my ministry, thank the Home Minister and the Home Ministry. CISF personnel have been increased by almost 21% in the last 8 to 10 months. 4,246 personnel have been added. Initial strength was 20,487. It is now 24,733. They have all been deployed at these airports. And similarly, on the immigration side, strength has been increased by over 1,000, which is almost over a 200% increase from the past year. Mind you, all of these processes take time because both CISF and BOI लोगों का प्रशिक्षण होना होता है. प्रशिक्षण के बाद उनको ऑन ड्यूटी 3 महीने के लिए टेम्पररी रूप से रखी जाती है और फिर उनका डिप्लॉयमेंट होता है. All of this has been done in the last 12 months. So I'd now like to quickly take you through a couple of slides in terms of what we have achieved, and then all of this will be given to you as a handout at the end of this briefing. So if we can start the presentation. So as I mentioned to you, we noticed a lot of requirements that need to be made with regard to designing a tool to make sure that we achieve facilitation of passengers across every airport. That could be done systemically by an airport itself, but we assigned that responsibility to BCAS as well to be able to come up with metrics that will be able to define the capability at every one of those 6 touch points that I talked about. And mainly those are the departure entry gates, the check-in, the security check-in, immigration and emigration, all 6 of those. What the historic position was and where we need to evolve to. And through that metrics that have been evolved jointly by DGCA and CISF and BOI under the auspices of the Home Ministry and the Civil Aviation Ministry, we have worked with the airports to improve the positions, which we will share with you during this presentation. These are the international metrics and the domestic metrics that we have evolved. The processing standard, for example, at the departure entry gate should be 20 seconds conventionally for a conventional passenger and 7 seconds for a Digi Yatra passenger. The check-in should be 120 seconds on domestic, international 300 seconds. The security checkpoints, they have their उनके अपने मानक हैं 180 से 160 processing standard और conventional XBIS जो ATRS मशीन न हो, ऑटोमेटिक ट्रे रिट्रीवल सिस्टम न हो, वहाँ करीब 135 से 105 ये मानक हमने रखा है. इमिग्रेशन और एमिग्रेशन के लिए भी मानक हमने बना के रखा था. और इसी के साथ क्यूइंग स्पेस के लिए भी, क्योंकि जब लाइन लगती है तो उस क्यूइंग स्पेस के लिए भी कितने स्क्वायर मीटर पर पैसेंजर रखी जानी चाहिए, उसका भी मानक डोमेस्टिक इंटीग्रेटेड चेक इन के लिए 1.8 स्क्वायर मीटर्स पर पैसेंजर का मानक हमने बना के रखा है। सिक्योरिटी चेक पॉइंट के लिए 1.2 स्क्वायर मीटर्स पर पर्सन, और वैसे ही इमिग्रेशन और एमिग्रेशन के लिए भी मानक हमने रखा गया। 5 हमने नए रूल बनाए और ये हर एक एयरपोर्ट पर लागू होगा। पहला रूल कि बिजनेस और कमर्शियल जगह के लिए स्पेस एलोकेट होगा केवल और केवल जब पर्याप्त मात्रा में जगह यात्रियों के लिए एलोकेटेड की जाएगी, नंबर 1। नंबर 2, कोई भी अतिरिक्त जगह अगर किसी एयरपोर्ट को चाहिए, कमर्शियल या रिटेल के लिए, वो आने वाले अनुमान कि कितने पैसेंजर की बढ़ोतरी होगी उस एयरपोर्ट में, उसी के बाद उसकी स्वीकृति उस एयरपोर्ट को दी जाएगी। जो भी जगह अनुमानित भविष्य की ट्रैफिक के लिए हमने रेखांकित किया है, वो किसी और चीज़ के लिए इस्तेमाल उस एयरपोर्ट में नहीं किया जाएगा। ये तीसरा रूल हमने रखा है। चौथा रूल हमारे इवैक्यूएशन रूट्स के लिए, सर्कुलेशन कॉरिडोर्स के लिए पर्याप्त जगह होनी चाहिए। और 5वां रूल कि जो कमर्शियल एक्टिविटीज़ हैं वो यात्री के ऑन द वे होना चाहिए।
तो